Good morning. Good morning, traders. How are you all doing today? Karibuni sana. Glad you could all join us this fine Tuesday morning, although it is quite chilly, been raining all night, but hope everyone is doing well. So for those who are new, my name is Mitch Kaniara and I'm a trader with Afriforex. I want to welcome you to another Afriforex daily analysis session. Now, during these sessions, we as the Afriforex team analyze the markets, we identify what trading opportunities we'll be looking at taking for the day, and we do share that information with you. So as usual, if you do have any questions or queries, feel free to ask them on the chat box. The team will be there to respond to you, but I will also look to address any question or comment addressed there at the end of this session. So let's jump straight into it. So we'll obviously start off with our watch list. Now, today and yesterday, there's not been really any change. Actually, the watch list is pretty much exactly the same as we did end up having yesterday. As you can see, our focus was looking for buying opportunities on the Canadian dollar as well as the US dollar and mixing and matching them with all the other pairs on the sell side. So it's pretty much going to be the same situation today. So we're basically going to be looking at all the pairs that we did have yesterday. So we'll also end up reviewing them at that time as well. So that being the case, I guess we'll just end up having a look at a few screenshots because we did end up getting a number. Then we will focus on today's pairs. Now, in terms of fundamentals, we do have some fundamentals coming out today during the London session. You can see around 12 o'clock for the euro. That seems like that's the only news events that are going to be coming out during the London session. We do have a number of more news coming out during the US session. So we expect at least some more volatility happening today during the US session. So let's jump into the pairs, or sorry, the screenshots that we did manage to get. We'll start off here with Alvin. Alvin, you did manage to grab a selling opportunity on the euro against the US dollar, taking advantage of that US dollar strength. Perhaps you did manage to grab the selling opportunity. The trade has really come in your direction. You can clearly still see that the trade is working out. You have closed some of your position rates over here. That's a very good thing. But once you're able to do that, at that point in time, you can be able to move your stop loss a bit low, at least to break even, to make sure that now it is a risk-free trade. The only potential here is you make money. So very, very good job on this trade, Alvin. Seems you took advantage of that US dollar strength because you also managed to grab a selling opportunity on the British pound against the US dollar. Seems here you have moved your stop loss to your break-even point. So very, very good job. Similar situation, you have already also closed some of your position down there. So great job on these trades, Alvin. Keep up the good work that you're doing and happy to see your screenshots here as well. So also next we get Bravin. Bravin, happy to see your screenshot here. Obviously, we do know you love trading silver. So here we have silver. You might grab a very nice selling opportunity right there at the top. You can see the trade really working in your direction. And we can see the fact that already your stop loss is below your entry. So very, very good job on this trade, Bravin. Keep up the great work that you're doing. And also next, we also got Metrin. Metrin, have to see a screenshot here as well. You do know you love trading the indices. So here you did manage to grab multiple buying opportunities on the NASDAQ. You can see the price is coming up in your favor. Now, remember, the main thing we also want to see, in fact, apologies, I can see your stop loss is already above there, break even. You have secured both of these trades. So very, very great job on this trade, Metrin. Keep up the good work that you're doing as well. So last but not least, we also did get Charlotte. Charlotte, have to see a screenshot. She didn't manage to grab a selling opportunity on gold. Very nice sell right there within the seller's AF. You can see the price already coming down in your favor. Your stop loss is still above your entry. But I think by this time, once the market starts potentially moving, you could potentially end up moving your stop loss at least within this particular level, which at least there you know the sellers are now starting to push to the downside. But still, very, very good job on this. Happy to see the fact that last time you did not necessarily buy with buyers and sell with sellers. Here, happy to see you did manage to grab the sell within a seller's AF, and we can see the trade working out in your direction. So very, very great job on this trade, Charlotte, and keep up the good work that you're doing. So that's it for all the screenshots that we did manage to get. Very happy to see a number of you did very well yesterday. So remember, if you do manage to take any setups based on things that we do share here, feel free to send them in to us via WhatsApp. Our contact details are in the video description below. So let's jump straight into today's pairs. So remember, we are going to be still focusing on the same pairs that we did have yesterday. So we'll start off with the Canadian dollar pairs, mix and match them with the pairs on the sell side, then move on to the US dollar. Do this exact same thing before we have a look at the indices. So we'll start off with here with the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. Now, yesterday, our bias was to look for selling opportunities. It is still the same situation today. Can clearly see where we were yesterday within this particular area. we did want the price to come back within this particular seller's area. And you can see the market did end up coming within this particular location. It was a bit earlier. I think this was around 1 o'clock. However, you can see there was a support and resistance area that was broken right there. Once the price came to the downside, you can see the price managed to pull back within that area. And that was at 3 o'clock during the US market open. And you can see the price really did come to the downside. Now, today, the bias is still going to be looking for selling opportunities. However, we're still going to be focusing on the exact same areas that we did have yesterday. Main reason being is the fact that the market hasn't technically made any new low. Remember, when we keep on mentioning that a market, in order for a level to be broken, it has to come back in and hold within that particular area. But you can clearly see in this situation, when the price came to the downside, we did not get the price actually holding below. It came back in and is holding above. Meaning if we do end up going up to a higher time frame, you should be able to see that this ends up just being a probe and this low is still holding. And that's the reason why our focus is still going to be looking for selling opportunities, but we'll wait to see one of two things. Either the price will still come back within this particular area before we're able to find those selling opportunities coming in, or you could easily find the price actually breaking this area to the downside. And once we're able to get the price holding below, then there you should be able to look for selling opportunities as well on the Australian dollar against Canadian dollar. So watch out to see where the price manages to get to. Also, we can clearly see this support and resistance area where the sellers did push down from yesterday. There's a potential that it might also react in that particular area as well. But remember, watch out for the market opening times. That's 10, 11, 3, and 4:30. You could end up finding some nice trading opportunities there. So moving on to the next Canadian dollar pair we do have, which is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. Now, yesterday, our bias here was to look for buying opportunities. And you can see the market was within an area where the sellers, what we wanted was a pullback. Now, the pullback did start coming in. Fortunately, could not get all the way to our main bias area down there. It seemed to have found some sort of support and resistance area within the middle here. But if you do note the time, that was around 3 o'clock, or even technically 4:30 is when it really started taking off during the US session. So you can see during the London session, we got the pullback before the buyers actually started coming in during the US session. Now, today, the buyers is still going to be looking for buying opportunities. So our focus is going to be on these levels right here. You can see in this situation, price onto the Australian dollar against Canadian dollar. When the price broke to the upside, you can see the price has come back in and seems to be holding above. That means it's confirmed that that level has been broken. So our focus is going to be on these three areas right here. We wait to see if we can potentially get some sort of probe or price action signal, some signs that the big boy buyers are actually going to come back in, and there we can end up actually looking for a buying opportunity. Alternatively, you can be able to also focus on these small sellers right here, because these seems to be the sellers that are actually pushing to the downside. I think if we are able to get the price breaking and holding above that area, there's potential for a buying opportunity as well at that point in time. But we'll wait to see what happens. Remember, if the price comes back in and holds below this area, chances are we can still come back all the way to this red support and resistance area, and we could find the buying opportunity right now. So wait to see what ends up happening. But this one, we are within a very interesting area. We'll wait to see when the big wave buyers are actually going to show up. So hope that's clear on the Canadian dollar against Swiss franc as we move on to the next Swiss franc pair. The Canadian dollar pair. Here we have the British pound against Canadian dollar. You can see the three areas that we had pointed out, looking for selling opportunities. You can see during the London market ended up actually giving us a pullback. Remember, we did point out that we were within an area where there are buyers, so we needed either the price breaking this area to the downside or giving us a pullback to the upside. Now you can see the price managed to actually give us a pullback throughout the London session. Market was going to the upside, but you can see a similar situation around 3 o'clock. That's when the price did manage to start coming down. Remember, I keep on pointing out, you want to see signs that the big boy sellers are actually interested in that area. And you can be able to see within this particular area right here, when the price was coming to the upside, you can see there were no big boy sellers yet, But now once the sellers came in, at that point in time, you knew that the sellers were actually interested in this. Remember what we always mentioned, wait for a pullback. You can see the pullback came in very close within that area, but that was at exactly 3 o'clock. So if you line up your entries with the market opening times, you can see that trade really did work out very, very well. However, today, the bias is still going to be looking for selling opportunities. So you can see we have managed to break this area to the downside. We do seem to be in a trending market. We'll focus on these three areas right here. Right now, the price is giving us a pullback, which is definitely what we want to see. We'll wait to see what kind of pullback comes in when the buyers are actually going to die out and when the big boy sellers are actually going to show up, similar to what happened yesterday. So wait to see if we can end up getting some signs of sellers coming in. We see the price holding within this particular area, we should be able to find a nice selling opportunity there. But remember, if the price breaks and holds above this area, price can still come back all the way to this red support and resistance area for us to look for our selling opportunities. So hope the game plan is clear on the British pound against the Canadian dollar. To move on to the next Canadian dollar pair. So right here, we have the euro against the Canadian dollar. Now, yesterday, our bias here was to look for selling opportunities. You can see the three areas that we had pointed out. Earlier, we wanted a pullback to come in during the London session, but you can see the market actually started coming to the downside. So this was around 11 o'clock. We were not able to get all the way to the sellers area there. The sellers actually started coming in during the London session. It just now really took off once the US session did end up coming in. But you can clearly see we did end up having a small area where the buyers were pushing up within here. Once the price was broken to the downside, you can see during the US market open around 3:30 there, you can see the price did manage to come to the downside. But this one would have been a bit tricky to end up grabbing that opportunity since we did not necessarily get all the way back up within our area of interest. But today, the bias is still going to be looking for selling opportunities, and we'll focus on these three areas of interest. So right now, as you can clearly see, the sellers have come down very aggressive. We've broken this major support and resistance area. So let's hope we can end up getting the price coming back within this particular location. Hopefully, we can end up getting more of a pullback, inciting a few more people to look for buying opportunities before we're able to end up grabbing some sells on the euro against the Canadian dollar. Remember, as you can clearly see, there's a lot of correlation coming in with all these pairs. So if the market is actually giving us a pullback on one of them, probably that's happening on all of them. And if that happens during the London session, then you definitely know you need to set up and wait just before the US session to see whether or not big boy sellers actually do end up showing up. So hope the game plan is clear on the euro against Canadian dollar. If we move on to the next Canadian dollar pair we do have. So right here, we have the New Zealand dollar against Canadian dollar. Bias here was to look for selling opportunities. Now, remember, I had pointed out that the market, you can see the three areas that we had while within. We wanted to see whether or not the market was actually going to give us a pullback and hold within this area right here. So remember, we had a support and resistance area. This is the level that we're focusing on yesterday. Now, when the price came up, it looked as if it was coming to the upside, but you can clearly see very nicely, the market never actually held above. It ended up coming back to this area, giving us a very nice probe right there where the market never actually held. And you can see, remember, we keep on pointing out, wait for a pullback within that support and resistance area to actually be able to look for selling opportunities. You can see that's exactly what happened. And if you look at the time that the market actually gave us that pullback, that was at exactly 3 o'clock during the US market open. So you can clearly see this trade did work out very nicely, confirm that this level was broken to the downside. So you can even see when the price came back and held below. So today, the bias here is still going to be looking for selling opportunities. Our focus is going to be on these three areas of interest. So the main sellers are right there at the top. So as long as we're holding below the red support resistance area, our bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. If the price breaks and holds above this red support resistance area, this pair will fall off our watches. So for now, we'll wait to see what ends up happening as the pullback is starting to come in. But as you can clearly see, we've not seen any signs of big boy sellers just yet. We'll wait to see. If we do see them coming back in, giving us some sort of probe or price action signal, seeing the price holding below, we could potentially end up finding a very nice selling opportunity then. But if the price ends up holding to the upside, remember the price is most likely going to come back all the way up to the red support resistance area before we're able to look for those selling opportunities. So we'll wait to see what ends up happening on the New Zealand dollar against Canadian dollar, but at least this one is within an area of interest, but we do need to see signs that the big boy sellers are actually interested in that. Now, next pair we do have, the next and last Canadian dollar pair we do have is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, yesterday, our bias was to look for buying opportunities, and you can see the three areas that we had pointed out. Unfortunately, the price did not necessarily give us a pullback. You can see throughout the whole of the London session, the market was just ranging, bouncing between these two levels. So once the US market came in fact, here it was the New York Stock Exchange open, around 4:30, that's when the price actually just took off to the upside. So this one might have been a bit difficult to get. As you can see, even when it broke to the upside, we never necessarily got a pullback in that particular area. However, the bias is still going to be looking for buying opportunities. We have identified major levels right here. It seems like there's a major support resistance area that was breached to the upside. So that being the case, we definitely know we still want to look for buying opportunities on this pair. But remember, we always mentioned we need a pullback to come in. I'm happy to see at least the pullback is starting to come in, but we want to see more of that. Remember, the more of a discount, if you want to buy this, it's much, much better if it actually ends up coming down a bit lower. At least there you end up getting a better price to actually look for those buying opportunities. So let's hope to see if we can end up getting this price coming back within this support and resistance area, hopefully giving us some sort of global price action signal, showing us evidence that this support and resistance area is holding to the upside. Then we should be able to look for those buying opportunities. But right now, let's wait and see how far this pullback is going to come back in for these buyers. So hope that's clear on the Canadian dollar pairs. As you can see, we'll mix and match the Canadian dollar with the pairs on the sell side. So right now we're going to move on to the US dollar pairs and do the exact same thing. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar against the US dollar. Yesterday, it seems the markets were really good to us since most trades actually ended up working out very well for both the US dollar and the Canadian dollar. So let's hope today is also the same. So here on the Australian dollar against the US dollar, yesterday our bias was to look for selling opportunities. It is still the same situation today. Now, if you do notice the market structure, even though, remember, since the price managed to end up giving us a pullback in the support and resistance area, we're hoping to see more of some sort of probe or price action signal, but this market did end up starting to move a bit earlier. So this trade might have been a bit difficult to end up getting due to the fact that also the price is still holding within the support and resistance area. But the fact is the market structure is a range. And if it is a range, then you definitely know if we're looking for selling opportunities, the best place to look for your sells is at the top of the range. So let's wait to see if we can end up getting this price coming back in within this area. Remember, if we see signs of big boy sellers coming in, then we should be able to look for selling opportunities. You can see in this situation, the big boy sellers did end up showing up within this particular area when they came to the downside. But we did end up getting a pullback. And I assume that pullback came in within around 4:30 or so during the New York Stock Exchange Open. However, today, game plan is still going to be the same. Let's wait to see if we can end up getting this pullback coming back within the support resistance area. It could potentially even end up giving us some sort of probe where it tries to spike to the upside. It could potentially end up coming to the downside. So wait to see what ends up happening here on the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So hope the game plan is clear there. As we move on to the next US dollar pair. So right here, the US dollar against the Swiss franc is the pair that we do have. Similar situation with the Australian dollar against the US dollar. Yesterday, our bias was to look for buying opportunities. And it seems this market is definitely within our range. As you can clearly see where we were early in the morning yesterday, we're at the top of the range. We needed either a breach to the upside or a pullback. And in this situation, the pullback did manage to end up coming in. Similar situation as the day before, we ended up getting a very nice probe within this particular area. We didn't miss that opportunity there. You can see we also had this blue support resistance area, saying that the price could also react in that location. And so a similar story with what happened the day before. You can see when the price came to the upside, it came back in and was holding above that particular area. That could have ended up giving us a very nice buying opportunity here on the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So today, the bias is still going to be the same since we're pretty much focusing on the exact same areas that we did have. But within a seller's area right there at the top, we have our bias here in the middle since we are within a range. So the bottom of the range is there. We have the main bias all the way down here. So as long as we're holding above this red support resistance area, our bias is going to be looking for buying opportunities. So for now, the game plan is pretty similar to what we had yesterday. We either need that pullback, potentially continue coming back in, holding within this support and resistance area for us to look for buying opportunities there, or we could easily find the market actually being able to break this area to the upside. And if you do see the market giving us a pullback and holding above, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities here on the US dollar against the Swiss franc. But for right now, since we're within the middle of the range, let's wait for either the pullback or the breach to the upside. So hope that's clear on the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So look at the next US dollar pair we do have. So right here, we have the British pound against the US dollar. Now, yesterday, our bias here was to look for selling opportunities. You can see where we were yesterday when the buyers were coming to the upside. Remember, in this situation, we did want to see one of two things. Either the price giving us a pullback and showing us evidence it's holding below, or it could end up coming back all the way to this red support and resistance area. And you can see that's exactly what ended up happening. The price was within this area at around 1 o'clock, where the price did end up reacting quite aggressively to the downside. But if you notice, since we did end up also having, and I pointed out, watch out for this seller's area, seems that the market just ended up giving a huge probe. Technically, it's like this level still held based on the fact that this market, when it went to the upside, it just came back in. So making this just a huge probe from this particular support and resistance area. And you can see after the fact, the market did manage to still come back within this support and resistance area. before managing to come to the downside. Though this one might have been a bit tricky to get, but I do know, is it Alvin, you did manage to grab this selling opportunity, so very good job on that. So today, the game plan is still the same, looking for selling opportunities. So our focus is going to be on the exact same level since none of them have fully been broken to the downside. So as long as we're holding below the red support and resistance area, our bias here is going to be looking for selling opportunities. So let's wait to see if we can potentially either get the market coming back in this support and resistance area for us to look for selling opportunities, or we could easily find this market actually just taking off to the downside, where you could easily find it that actually breaches this area to the downside. You see it holding below, then you should be able to look for selling opportunities then. But for right now, let's hope to see if this market can give us a bit more of a pullback coming in before we're able to look for those sells. So hope that's clear on the British pound against the US dollar. As we move on to the next US dollar pair. So right here we have the euro against the US dollar. Now, yesterday our bias here was to look for selling opportunities. It is still the same situation today. Now, remember, I had pointed out, let me just show you, these are the three areas that we had pointed out, looking for those potential sells. But I'd also mentioned that we had some sellers area within here. That's the reason why we also had a blue support and resistance area right there. And it seems that that's where the market only was able to get to. You can clearly see when the price approached this particular area, you could see signs that the big boy sellers were interested. Whenever the buyers tried to show up, you can see the way the sellers really did come down aggressive. The buyers tried to show up, similar situation, showing that aggression. So meaning they were very, very interested in that particular seller's area. So it might have been a bit difficult to get unless you were focusing on that area. But you can see there was also a conservative entry. Once the price broke this area to the downside, you can see we did manage to get a pullback, showing us confirmation that it was holding below. You can see the price did manage to continue coming to the downside. So today, the bias is still going to be looking for selling opportunities. So these are going to be our new levels for today. So as long as we're holding below this red support and resistance area, our bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. So right now, as the price has come to the downside, let's hope to see if we can end up getting more of a pullback coming in, potentially within this support and resistance area, incites a few more people to look for buying opportunities. Once we see the sellers are actually interested in coming back in, then we should be able to grab those selling opportunities then. But remember, there is the option that the price could just end up starting to continue going to the downside. You might find that these buyers are actually not interested. If the price breaks and holds below, then remember, we can be able to look for selling opportunities there as well on the euro against the US dollar. So wait to see what ends up happening here as we move on to the next US dollar pair. So right here, we have the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. Now, similar situation with the New Zealand dollar pairs. They did look similar with the New Zealand dollar against Canadian dollar, where it looked as if it had broken this area to the downside. It's a similar story here, where the price, rather than going to the upside and holding above, remember I pointed out, you can see that this market just ended up actually giving us a probe, where the price, remember we had our level, our support and resistance area was right here. And when the price had come down, remember we always mentioned, let's wait to see if the price is going to hold within this area. We can see in this situation, yes, it did. Even though it looked as if it went to the upside, but the fact that the price never held above that particular area, that ended up just being a huge probe. And after that, you can see the price still managed to pull back to that same support and resistance area before actually coming to the downside. So there was some nice selling opportunities available for us there yesterday. And today, the bias is still going to be the same, still looking for selling opportunities. However, the levels have been adjusted slightly. So we will be looking for selling opportunities as long as we're holding below this red support and resistance area right there. And we should be watching out for these areas of interest here. So let's wait to see if we can potentially end up getting this pullback coming in. That's ideally what we would want to see, ideally within a support and resistance area next right there for us to look for the sells. But the price ends up continuing to go to the downside. We'll only look for selling opportunities after we get the price breaking up away from this particular area. Remember, we always mention buy with buyers and sell with sellers. But if you're within you want to sell and you're within a buyer's area, the best thing to do is wait for the price to actually break the area to the downside. And once it's no longer giving you issues, then you should be able to look for selling opportunities. So we'll wait to see what ends up happening here on the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. As we move on to the next last US dollar pair we do have. So right here, we have the US dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, yesterday, our bias here was to look for buying opportunities. It seems that the yen pairs really did end up showing us a lot of weakness. Remember, I had pointed out that we're hoping to see the market giving us more of a pullback. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Price ended up continuing to come down lower, but it was around 1 p.m. You can see the price attempted to start coming up. The buyers showed up a bit, but it was around 4:30. That's when the market really did end up taking off to the upside. There was a small hold towards the area right here, but that would have been a bit difficult to end up grabbing at that point in time. However, today, that doesn't mean that we will not necessarily find opportunities as well today. So we will be focusing on these three areas, still looking for buying opportunities. Right now, we have pushed to the upside and there's potentially a pullback about to start. So that's what we want to see. Can end up getting the price coming in a bit lower, potentially within the support and resistance area that we did end up breaking through the upside yesterday. Can see the price holding above that location, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities. So in this situation, let's wait to see what ends up happening. But remember, if the yen shows a lot of weakness, don't be surprised if the price actually continues going to the upside. If you see it holding above, then you should be able to look for buying opportunities there. But remember, one thing about the yens, they're very much correlated. So you can see here the US dollar against the Japanese yen, also have the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen as well. So if you do see one of them reaching to the upside, chances are the other one will be doing the exact same thing. So we'll end up seeing what happens then. So hope that's clear on all the currency pairs. As you can see, we'll mix and match the pairs on the buy side with the pairs on the sell side. So right now we're going to have a look at the indices before we move on to gold and silver. Now, for the NAS 100, I think we should be asking Metrine to be coming here to, to present and show us what she's doing at the NASDAQ, since she seems to be doing very well on these pairs. But yesterday, our bias here was to look for selling opportunities. It technically still is, because I remember we had pointed out that this market, the way it has been going, has been overall in a seller's market. The way this market, you can see these big sellers right here, they have been the ones who have been pushing this area to the downside. Now, we keep on mentioning whenever a level is broken, we want the price to really breach to the upside and actually give us a hold. So the reason why we are still focusing on a sell and we're going to still be looking at the exact same levels is mainly because we were not fully convinced that these sellers are really done. So you could easily find that this market could end up actually coming to the downside, definitely inciting very many people to look for buying opportunities. So for us, we will be focusing still on the same areas. However, we will be watching, trading this with a lot of caution. Because what we could end up expecting to see, the price could easily come to the downside, and if you see it holding below, then at that point in time, we should be able to look for selling opportunities. Make sure you manage your trade within these particular problem areas. So we have the main, or at least a buyer's area down here. The main buyers all the way down here. But watch out for this blue support resistance area as well. It's clearly a major support resistance area. You can see based on the 4-hour time frame, this was this level right here, where there was a particular sellers who kept on pushing to the downside. And that being the case, you can easily see that the price could potentially come back in within that area. So overall, we will still be looking for the selling opportunities. The only time we'll really look for the buys once we do end up getting a proper strong breach to the upside. So the buyers should come in a bit stronger. At that point in time, we will wait for a pullback to be able to look for buying opportunities. So this one is quite tricky, but we wait to see what ends up happening. As you can see, the market kept on giving us a pullback, but we want to see at what point in time are the people sellers actually going to come in. Because right now, I don't necessarily think most people will be very comfortable buying with these buyers, because they do look quite weak. You can clearly see how they've been coming to the upside. They got a bit of strength there, but now you can just look at the way they're moving. They're not necessarily looking that strong. So don't be surprised that you could easily find the market coming to the downside. And that's the reason why for now we will still be looking for selling opportunities on the NAS 100. So we wait to see what ends up happening here. However, on the Dow Jones, on the US 30, this one is a bit clearer. Ideally, this market just continued going to the upside. Wanted to see some sort of pullback coming in. That did not end up happening. We did have this support resistance area, blue support resistance area right here, based on the higher time frame. Since you can see this was a major seller's area, the fact that we never necessarily got the pullback there, that doesn't mean that we might not get it today. Remember, since our bias is still going to be looking for buying opportunities, we hardly got any pullback. That's the reason why this one would have been a bit difficult for us to end up grabbing. But today, the bias is still going to be looking for buying opportunities. So the levels have adjusted. So overall, we will be looking for buying opportunities as long as we're holding above this red support and resistance area. So right now, let's wait to see if we can potentially end up getting a pullback coming in. We can end up seeing the price approaching this support and resistance area. We do see the price holding above this location, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities then. Remember, if the price just breaks this area to the upside and does hold above, then at that point in time, we will look for buying opportunities then. For us, the main objective is for us to look for a pullback. A pullback is ideally us asking for a discount whenever we're looking to enter a trade. So hope that is clear on the US 30 and the Dow Jones. Let's wait to see if we can potentially get a pullback, but overall, our bias here will be to look for buying opportunity. Now, moving on to silver. Now, in silver, yesterday our bias was to look for selling opportunities. It is still the same situation today. But you can see the levels haven't been fully broken. And that's the reason why we will still be focusing on the same level. So as long as we're holding below the red support resistance area, our bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. So yesterday, based on how the market did end up reacting, remember I had pointed out that we did have these buyers that could be giving issues. The market was within here. We did end up getting a very nice probe where the market came to the upside, did not hold, came back in and was holding below. And if you realize, we did not necessarily take off until around 4:30 during the New York Stock Exchange. After that, that's when you can clearly see price showing us evidence that it was actually holding below this particular area. Very nice probe. And after that, the market did manage to continue coming to the downside. Unfortunately, could not get all the way to the main buyer's area. That's the reason why we also point out, make sure you're managing your trade, moving your stop losses to break even. As the markets keep on moving down, you either secure some position or moving your stop loss lower. So just in case the markets do end up giving you more of a pullback, at least you are able to manage that trade well. So today, the buyers here is still going to be looking for selling opportunities. Probably watch out for this area where the buyers did end up reacting from yesterday, but the game plan is pretty much going to be the same. So still looking for selling opportunities. Let's wait to see if we can potentially either get some sort of probe or price action signal for us to look for a selling opportunity here. But if this price was not necessarily good enough for us to make a new low, we could end up finding the market coming up a bit higher before we're able to look for those selling opportunities. Could easily find the market coming back in this small support and resistance area right here, where you could easily find the market getting towards that location, especially if it lines up in one of the market opening times, you could potentially find some nice selling opportunities there. So we'll wait to see what ends up happening here. But right now, it's definitely on the pullback. We'll wait to see at what point in time the big board sellers will actually come back in. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now, in gold, yesterday and today, our bias is and was to look for selling opportunities. You can see the areas that we had pointed out. Similar situation with silver, where we were within the seller's area. The market looked as if it was going to the upside. It came back in, tried to go to the upside, where it did manage to get this support and resistance area. And I think this is where Charlotte did manage to grab the selling opportunity. And you can see after that, the market did manage to start coming to the downside. Now, if that was a bit tricky for you to grab a selling opportunity, then you could have easily waited. But once the price did manage to come back in and was holding below, you could have actually looked for your selling opportunities then. Remember, we keep on pointing out the market opening times, 3 and 4:30. We can see that was around 4:30 when the market is actually holding to the downside of that particular area. And that's when the market really did end up taking off, coming all the way back down towards the buyers. Now, I had pointed out there was the buyers who are pushing the market within here. It seems that this level could potentially still have some significance based on the fact that, as you can clearly see, the market has come to the downside, making this low right here. But the pullback and the fact that we are potentially getting some sort of probe right here, you can clearly see the market has not been able to break this area. Don't be surprised that you find the market coming to the downside from here. But remember, the main thing we always want to see, it's either giving us a pullback within this location. So you could easily find the market still coming to the upside, holding before coming down. If it's this particular area, you need to also watch out for who is the buyer that's pushing to the upside. So if you do want to be a bit more conservative here, potentially end up waiting for the price to actually break that area to the downside. If you see it holding below, then you might end up finding a selling opportunity available for us there on gold. But for right now, we are definitely on the pullback phase. Let's wait to see at what point in time the pullback will die out and where the big boy sellers are actually going to show back up. So hope that's clear on all the kinds of pairs. As you can see, our watch list is pretty much the same as yesterday. Now, in terms of fundamentals, as I pointed out, there's not necessarily much. We have some euro fundamentals during the London session around 12 o'clock, and then we have a lot more US dollar news. So at least we expect the US session to be a lot more active, but we are also probably going to see some activity as well during the London session, since at least we do have some fundamentals coming out. So I guess that is it from me. Let me see if there are any questions. Seeing someone called Revenge Thanos. You're saying, thank you guys. You're helping a lot of beginners just like me. Very happy to see and very happy to hear that. remember, we are doing this because we realize that it's very difficult, especially at the beginning, figuring out what should I be looking to trade. There are so many pairs to actually be looking at, but why should I be focusing on one or the other? At least we try and narrow that down for you to end up focusing on one or two pairs. And that's the reason why we also mentioned, if you look at these, we always focus on one or two or three specific pairs, but you should be able to try and see, are the Canadian dollar pairs showing strength? Are the US dollar pairs showing strength? Or which of these are actually showing weakness? Because even though they are also on the sell side, you'll find some are weaker than the others. So similar situation, I think like something like the yen. The yen, if you compare how the markets moved, so let's say, for example, the US dollar against the yen, you can see how high it went to the upside. Similar situation with the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. It really did move very aggressively to the upside. But now if you compare with another pair, let's say, for example, probably the Swiss franc, let's say. You can see in this US dollar against Swiss franc, we did manage to get to the upside. Canadian dollar against Swiss franc, we did manage to make a new high, but it hasn't really fully taken off. We can clearly see, even though the Swiss franc and the yen are both weak, but the yen is much weaker. So those are just concepts that you can be able to focus on as well as you're looking at figuring out what pair to end up trading. Because I know sometimes we end up bringing a lot of currency pairs for you to look at. Most people are wondering which one should I be taking. And the next day you come in, you're finding people are sending screenshots. I know sometimes it can be disheartening, but remember, it's the focus is just focus on one or two. Try and see if the big boys are actually showing interest. You can be able to use correlation. If it's reacting on one pair, its chances are it's going to be doing it on the other pair as well. So you can be able to take note of that. So anyway, I guess I hope I've answered your question, at least even given a bit more value. But thank you so much for joining us as well. So I guess that's it from me and from us. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. Really do appreciate it. Hope you are finding value in these sessions because we do want to end up helping as many people as possible. We know this, it's not necessarily hard, but at the same time, it's not easy. So hope everyone does well today. And remember, do manage to send in your screenshots. Our contact details are in the video description. And please don't forget, if you found value in this session, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. Also, bring that bell notification just in case. So at least you are notified whenever we do end up going live or at least uploading a video. So once again, thank you guys so much. Have an amazing trading day. God bless. Happy trading and bye for now. Cheers, guys.